Welcome to another enlightening episode of the Skeptic Metaphysicians. I'm Will.
And I'm Karen.
And today we have the pleasure of diving deeper into the mystical realms of intuition, ancient wisdom, and spiritual mysteries with our incredible guest, Shanna Vavra. Shanna is no ordinary individual. She is an intuitive. She's a Reiki master teacher and the driving force behind the renowned Sense of Soul podcast. Throughout her life's journey, Shanna has fearlessly followed her inner compass, leading her to explore the uncharted territories of her ancestral roots and unravel the enigmatic teachings hidden within Gnostic gospels and age-old scriptures. With over 2 decades of experience in coaching roles, Shanna's passion for unveiling obscured histories and breathing life into once hidden narratives has become her life's purpose. Through her podcast, Sense of Soul, she engages in real, authentic, and conscious conversations with kindred spirits from all walks of life, light workers, motivational speakers, and authors who share their wisdom and inspire authentic living. Now, her podcast's resounding success speaks for itself. It's ranked in the top 1% of all podcasts on Listen Notes, and it is crowned as the #1 top spiritual awakening podcast by FeedSpot's esteemed list of 40 best spiritual awakening podcasts to follow in 23. With over 1 million downloads and an extensive library of 400 episodes, the Sense of Soul podcast has touched the lives of countless individuals, guiding them on their own unique journeys towards discovering their true sense of soul. Shanna, thank you so much for being on the show. We're excited to talk to you today.
Oh my gosh, thanks for having me. That was quite the intro.
Well, we try to do things that make people go, who's that? Is that me?
And the audience go, how did they get them on their show?
Right. That's the most important thing, is how to get them on their show.
What do I have on her?
Well, and then I neglected to mention that Shanna and her podcast, Sense of Soul, is a part of the wonderful ethereal podcast network that we are also a part of. And we're thrilled to have you on there.
Yeah. It's a pleasure to be among so many amazing names and, all with the same purpose. And I love it so much. I love all you guys so much.
Well, thank you. We love you right back. Now, let's just dive right into it. Can you share how you discovered your own sense of soul and what led you to embark on this whole spiritual journey thing?
Yeah. I mean, I never saw it coming, that's for sure.
Not many people do.
No. I think I was trying to fit in that conditioned box, and I was doing pretty well. I was, keeping up with the Joneses, making sure my kids were good so that I looked good. We went to church every Sunday, trying to live the dream in my cookie cutter house. But I think it was so overwhelming to do so that I was losing myself. And, that conditioned box is painful. It turned into all kinds of diagnoses like fibromyalgia, ADHD, anxiety forever. And I was on all of these medications. I mean, I was so numbed out. And the kids would be on the roof and I'd be like, hey guys, you should probably get down. Just out of it. And I've always been such an emotional person. And I was at the point where I couldn't even cry.
Wow.
Yeah. I was just numb. And so I remember, and my memory was going. That was a weird thing because I've always had a really good memory. And I remember going to my doctor and saying, something ain't right. I mean, I literally cannot remember the beginning of my day. And there's something going on here. I was like, just take me off all these drugs and I'll just go to like a shrink. Okay. And so I did. And it was like the best thing that ever happened because, they were bringing awareness to, there were other ways that maybe I could be handling my stress besides just numbing them and covering them up. And so one lady who diagnosed me with ADHD also suggested in the same session that I should go to a mindfulness class. And I'm like, lady, you just told me my mind had no problems being full. Like, what are we talking about here? And so I did. And it was in that moment, in that mindfulness class, I really sucked at it. First I'll just say that I did not accomplish mindfulness in that class.
Usually we all do, right, when we first get started. So
I didn't even know there were classes for that. I
Right?
thought you just had to be mindful.
Yeah.
Like, what do they teach you? Like, how?
Well, in England, you have to mind the gap. Does that work?
Actually, it was very interesting. It was like feel the paper, it was all these things. And actually the teacher, the leader of the class had made like a paper airplane. And all I'm thinking was, oh yeah, Drew got in trouble for that paper airplane at school last week. Then I'm like, I should be at home. I should be with my kids. Oh my God, he's telling me to breathe. I can't even breathe. I don't know how to breathe. I suck at this. And I'm like looking around and I'm like, oh my God, everyone's better than, me at this. And I started to panic and I started to listen. And I just was so mean to myself. I mean, I was talking some mad crap. And that was the moment. I didn't even know there was this other voice. And you're something to listen to this voice that was really talking crap to me. I would never talk to a stranger the way I was talking to myself. And that really was the moment.
So then when you realized that something was wrong, what did you turn to first? Because you do a lot of things. You're intuitive, you're a Reiki master teacher, you've done ancestral studies. I mean, you've done a lot. So what was your first step in the world of the metaphysical?
Well, because I was working with my doctor, to get over the stress, I had saw that they had some sort of study. It was like a nighttime meditation study. And I was like, all right, maybe I'll try something like this. As long as it's not too woo-woo. I don't want to go to hell for meditating. Grew up Catholic, right?
Yeah.
It was so funny because I was so excited about this. And then when they do like this online kind of quiz that they ask you all these questions. And at the end, I said I was too stressed out for their study, but that I was doing all the good things like mindfulness and seeing a shrink and all these things, but I didn't qualify. But I was so excited. So I was like, screw this, I'll make my own.
Wow, that's surprising that you didn't qualify.
Yeah. So you didn't. So you were too stressed for a stress release study. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
I know.
And then that's stressful when they tell you that. You're like, oh God,
It's
I'm really bad.
Can you imagine? Yes, I felt so defeated, but I was like, no, I was really looking forward to this. So I'm going to create my own. And back then, I don't even know if they had a YouTube. So, I mean, I was like really searching for stuff. But I did find some sort of nighttime meditation. And sure enough, it was working. I was sleeping better than ever. I was listening to that voice more than ever. And just my awareness became super heightened. And I liked this space. I really did. And I was crocheting at the time. I had learned how to crochet. I think it was like at the beginning of my 30s, like all of these new talents came to me. I don't know what happened. Maybe it was a walk-in. You hear those things? But yeah, I learned how to crochet. I mean, I learned how to sew. In fact, it was very interesting. I would sit there and sew, and I didn't know what I was doing, but I was doing it. And I would call the bobbin a bobber. And I did for like a year before my partner was like, that's not a bobber. And I was like, well, I think it is. And he's like, no, that's when you fish, you use a bobber.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
That's interesting, though. It is really interesting how during that time where I was making space for myself, all of a sudden I became real super creative, which I think happens when you're on that vibe. Creativity is part of it. But it was hilarious because I was making these rag rugs and you start like in the inside and before you know it, you're like on this rug and it's huge around you. And I would play this chanting music that I found on YouTube. And believe me, the only reason why I played this chant because it said God is love, love is God. So I thought I was like, okay, but come to find out, it's like one of the most powerful Hindu chants. Like the most ancient, powerful chant.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I tricked myself.
And there's something, you're talking about these new talents and being creative. There's something that's so like meditative about working with your hands. Like when I cook and I have to chop a lot of stuff, I just like go into the zone. And I always think, well, maybe in a past life I was a factory worker or someone that just kind of did that because it's such like a comfortable place for me to be doing things with my hands because you're just there in the moment. You're focusing on what you're doing. You're not, stressed about anything.
It's so true.
Right.
I have God. But at that time also, I had 4 kids. I had 2 in high school. one child who's on the spectrum, and a newborn. So, I mean, anyone would be stressed. And I had just lost my dad. I lost one of my best friends. And it was really crazy. And I do remember there was this one moment in the bath. This is really interesting. I'm going to share a very intimate moment.
All
So,
right.
yeah. I'm in the bathtub and I'm looking, and in the corner, there's like this bottle, and it's a philosophy bottle. That was the brand name of this bubble bath.
Mhm.
And it had been like in the corner of the bubble bath forever. Like if you tried to pick it up, it was like stuck like to the tub. But I look at it and I see it's called Begin Again. And I don't think they have this one anymore, but I wish they did because it was so beautiful. But I looked at it closer, and, I'm starting to be more mindful of things, right? But I'd never seen this bubble bath or read it ever. And I'm reading it, and it's the most beautiful thing ever. It says something like, you can climb to the highest mountain to find yourself at the bottom of a new one, begin again. You crossed all your I's, but you forgot to dot your T's, or dot your I's, forgot to cross your T's, begin again, right? I mean, it was just all that. And that was such a big moment for me because I just cried. It was so beautiful. Like, I really became mindful just of everything around me. And really that's what it did.
And how were you then able to, growing up Catholic and kind of with all the stress and, you've got all these kids and just so much time to learn to crochet and everything, but how were you able to be accepting of the woo, of Reiki, of all of this?
Right. Yeah. I think it was actually the magic question that I asked myself that I love to ask people that I work with too, is how much of what you believe have you been told to believe? And of that, how much have you experienced to be true for yourself?
Wow, that's a great
And
question.
yeah. And I could honestly say the only thing that I felt like I had really experienced was like love for like my children. But everything else, like my belief system, who I wanted to be, what I went to school for, what I was the work I was doing, all of that, where I was living, everything was really just based off of what everyone else told me that I should be and believe in. And so from
No.
that moment, I was seeking experience.
Interesting, but I heard this quote somewhere just a couple of days ago, and I thought I don't know where this is coming from or why I'm hearing this, but now it all makes sense. It says, "I don't know what the truth is, but I know what love feels like, and I follow that every single day." That's
Oh,
like perfection right there.
oh my gosh, just
Yeah.
totally. So that's it. My whole body just tingled. I have goosebumps, right? It's like I
Mhm.
experienced what you said.
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
And so with all the strife and the conflict and all that kind of stuff and what is the truth, what's real, what's not, what really at the end of it all, I mean, just what love is. Just do that. Just do that and you'll be okay. Oh,
It is. Yeah.
Well, I think, you say you know what love is, but I think it can be confusing to some people because I think they interpret it as a relationship love or a mother-child love. Love is so much more than that.
mm,
And it's not even loving your neighbor. It's just so much more. It's this feeling, this overwhelming feeling of just peace and joy and
Yeah.
acceptance and tolerance.
Right.
And
yeah, and I think that when you meditate, to Shannon's point, when you meditate, I think you get to a point where you realize that you are nothing but love. And I think as long as you hang on to that feeling moving forward on a day-to-day basis, that's what makes it so
Mhm.
great.
That's what
At
the
least.
sense of soul is, right? I mean, you're literally
Yep.
sensing that love, you're experiencing it.
Yeah.
And that's what I was seeking. I wanted truth, and I became like a die hard truth seeker in that moment. And I wanted
All right.
to experience truth. And that kind of started with my ancestral journey for sure. There's so much healing through that. But I think the one thing that blew me away the most in my whole entire ancestry journey is that no matter which lineage I looked at, they were all forced in some way to their religion.
Huh.
Wow.
Yes.
That is interesting.
So I had an ancestor who was on one of those first 5 boats that came from France to New Orleans. And it was like 17 something, early 1700s. And he was actually a German. And he was a witness to those before you got on the boat, you were to get baptized before you got on the boat if you weren't already. And then, of course,
Wow.
that was in the Black Code So all slaves had to be baptized, and they got Sundays off. And then you had the Cajun people that were relocated from Canada down to New Orleans or down to Louisiana as well. And I had a great shaman who is known as the apostate because him and his tribe were forced to be Christians. They gave him Christian names. And yeah. So, and then of course my dad had Jewish in him. And so there was that whole cover up, and I never knew anything about that. But they were all very, very Catholic.
Let's talk a little bit about teachings and learning since we're on the topic. You've had over 400 episodes on your show, right? You have dove into every imaginable modality, spiritual thought process, the whole deal.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to assume that you have all the answers, and we're about to learn what they all are. The floor is yours, Shanna.
And go.
I don't know about that. I'm definitely a teacher. I mean, I'm not a teacher. I'm a student for life, for sure. But what I found is of course, you're learning every episode from these amazing people. I'm sure you guys can absolutely, contest to that. I mean, it's pretty remarkable to be able to talk to some of the amazing people we're talking to. And I've learned so much. And of course, there's so many different modalities, like you were saying, and I love to learn about all of them. I really do. But what I found was that, like when I started Reiki, I was really into it, and I still do. I teach it. I think it's a great foundation for energy. But I was putting myself back in another box. So I like to teach Reiki, but I always say, like, make it your own. So that was another thing that I really truly had to learn throughout this journey is, there's many ideas to different things, many, different practices. But when it comes down to it, I think that once you're out of that box, it's harder to get back in it. And so I really, follow, like you said at the very beginning, my inner compass. I mean, I really, really trust my discernment. Even with my Sophia journey. So I've been on this journey studying the Gnostic Gospels and the Gnostic Sophia. And I had to use discernment throughout that entire time because there's so much outside opinions about different things. And I just shut it all out because I wanted to experience it, and I wanted to learn it for myself. And however I did, I wanted to be authentic.
Now, for those that aren't familiar with the Gnostic scriptures or Sophia, in a nutshell, can you nutshell it for us? What is that?
Yeah, in the nutshell. So the Nag Hammadi was found. Well, so there's lots of different Gnostic texts, but there was a huge library of them found like in the 1940s, 50s, somewhere around there. And so there was also many found like in the 1700s as well. So these are very old scriptures that were found that are the Gospels of Jesus's disciples. So the only ones that we know that made the cut were Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And Peter wrote most of them, which Peter didn't even know Jesus. But you have all of these other ones that, people are more familiar with. I mean, Judas, James, Thomas, Mary Magdalene, right? There's hundreds of them. And so I started to explore. I happened to come across one of them one day. I think it was the Book of Thomas, which is the most beautiful Gospels ever, which is also, I think, one of the most popular Gospels where he's only quoting Jesus. So it's not like he's telling the stories. He's quoting him, which you do hear many of the same quotes that you do find in the New Testament. But these are kind of untouched. They're like virgin Gospels because they haven't, been touched by the hierarchy or the church and all of these things. And they've only been translated only a few times. So they're more raw. And you get to know this almost like Zen Master Jesus.
I like that, Zen Master Jesus.
And
so
Karen,
like a
you'll
DJ.
Like this. There's a lot of feminine energy in this. So there's many, many, many
That's why they didn't
women.
make that.
Yes, I really do think so as part of it. So there were many disciples that were women, and they were highly regarded, especially Mary Magdalene. And there's also the mention of a feminine goddess or like a feminine energy of God, which is Sophia, which in Greek just means wisdom. she's mentioned in the Bible. She's also mentioned in the Catholic canon, in the Book of Wisdom, which is after her. But yeah, I mean, she was hidden, buried. And now she is been birthed from earth and she's rising. And hopefully, if anyone ever listens to this or my podcast, they'll learn a little bit more about, who she is.
Wow. It's such a shame that so much of this feminine energy isn't really in the Bible that most people read, because there's such a difference between the masculine and the feminine. And in my experience, I think the feminine energy tends to be so much more encompassing of everything.
Yeah.
So I think it would really have kind of given an extra something to the Bible.
Balance.
Yeah, balance.
Balance.
Yeah, probably balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we need to take a quick break before we get too much further down this rabbit hole. But when we come back, we're going to keep talking to Shanna. We're going to dive a little deeper into her Sense of Soul podcast and some of the learnings that she's gotten from the interviews that she's done. And we'll dive a little bit more into her Gnostic research and things like that. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Skeptic Metaphysicians. We are with Shanna Vavra, who is the brains behind the Sense of Soul podcast, with over 1 million downloads and 400 plus episodes recorded and released. We are thrilled to have her with us to talk all things metaphysics, spirituality. I got to put this on the table because everybody knows, and including you, how jealous I am of you, because you have had not just once, but twice. You've had the honor, the privilege, the luck to have Neil Donald Walsch on your show. How in the world, how was he? Like, how amazing must that have been to have him on your show?
Oh my God. I love him. I mean, I do. I adore him so much. And I do feel like we have a connection. I definitely feel like there is something, that is connecting us on just that love of seeking something and overcoming, challenges and looking for, the world to, he has the same passion, actually the same as you guys do. We want to see the world kind of find their light within, them, rather than seeking it outside of themselves. And learning to, climb onto that top of the mountain. And even if you're coming to a brand new mountain, like, know that you got stronger, and just keep going. And he's so inspiring. And guess what? You guys are going to die. Guess what happened? He's going to write the foreword of my book.
Get out of town.
Wow, congratulations.
That's amazing.
That is awesome.
Right. And we haven't even touched on the fact that you're writing a book. And so, I mean.
And congratulations on that too.
Right,
Holy cow.
Right. So first, Neil Donald Walsch, for those that are uninitiated, he is really the channeler, right? The author, I don't know, I guess best way to put it, of Conversations with God, the entire series. And it is my Bible. It is it is the series of books that I have followed through my entire dark night of the soul periods of time, and that's not just singular but plural. And to have him write the foreword for your book automatically puts it in a place where very few books have the honor of. So how much money did it cost you?
You guys, first of all, it's actually in my episode with him, the more recent episode. So I'm telling him that I received this message I felt like it was a feminine energy, which I must say, my whole journey with the Gnostic Gospels and Sophia and all this stuff, I did not ever feel I was channeling her or anything like that. I felt like my higher self was leading me, synchronicities, my dreams. But in this circle, this was just at the beginning of October. We're praying at the end of the circle, and it is a Sophia circle. And we're saying a prayer, and I'm like, I don't want to say a prayer. I actually just want to receive maybe some wisdom. I'm not going to put out, what I want or whatever. I want to just receive something. And I received something very divine. And so I'm sharing this with Neil, and I tell him what it is. And I say, I received, I belong to no one, not no one like nobody, but no one person. I belong to no one, and I am home to all. And from there, he's like, you're making this a book. And I'm like, dude, I just received one sentence, 2 sentences, right? 6 words or whatever it is, not a whole book.
Every journey starts with the first step.
Oh, moly, and what a first step. That is a beautiful message.
Isn't it? it just, it
Mm-hmm.
got me for days because that can mean so many things. Like home can be so
Yeah.
many things. It could be the earth. It could be within yourself. I just, it could be Mother Earth. I think I felt the Mother Earth. I felt that feminine presence of Mother Earth and that. But then as I pondered on the message and then not belonging to no one, I've said that before because I feel like people want to own you. I mean, even marriage,
Mm.
what is that? I mean, no, it's a contract.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
I really
It's an
do
agreement.
feel, like, this belonging, like, I don't belong to anyone, and just like my children. So
Mm-hmm.
I've really practiced non-attachment over the years because I really do think it's like the root of all suffering, like some Buddha or Dalai Lama said, which was whoever said it was amazing. And so I just feel like I belong to no one, and it just made me think of women,
Mm-hmm.
really, how we've been
Yeah.
suppressed. It was such a powerful meaning. It did, it really was divine. And Neil thought so too. And I definitely was going to add it to the book that I was already writing.
Wow.
So what, I mean, tell us about this book.
Yeah.
What is it about? When is it coming out? How can we get a hold of it?
Yeah. It's like one of those things. I don't know if it felt like it was never going to end. I was like, because I kept
Mm.
receiving stuff like this. And I'm like, well, it's never
Mm-hmm.
going to end. So it actually came to me that it'll probably be a triple, like 3 books. I see a triple goddess series. So, which is
Oh,
the beginning of my journey started with the triple goddess, that whole synchronicity of the triple goddess. So, Sophia, it's desperately seeking Sophia. But if you think about when I say Sophia, it's wisdom. So, desperately
Mm-hmm.
seeking wisdom. And there's a big difference between wisdom and knowledge. I mean, you probably
Oh yeah.
understand that, very smart people are also the stupid people often.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. Usually, actually.
Yeah. So, but wisdom is also, I think, something that is divine and found within, right? It's not something you'll read
Mm-hmm.
in a book.
Yeah.
So I'm not asking anyone to find wisdom in my book, but I want them to seek it within themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to share my story of how I did. And through that story, I will be sharing like the history of the Gnostic Gospels, Sophia, and all the other
Mm-hmm.
divine feminines that have been buried, hidden. Yeah.
Fascinating. I have to admit, I don't know a lot about Sophia other than the fact that it was the female version of God or whatever you want to call it. But other than that, I don't know much about it. So I'm really curious about this book.
Yeah, and you don't really hear about
For
it.
sure.
Mm-mm.
It's really funny that
Yeah.
nobody knows much about Sophia, but at one point in Turkey, where Christianity was once started in Turkey,
Mhm.
that was the biggest church that Constantinople had ordered was called Hagia Sophia, which means holy wisdom. It's still there. But when I was watching the beginning, there was like some news guy that was like in Ukraine, right there in the middle of Ukraine. And he's like, I'm standing
Mhm.
in the back and here in front of the St. Sophia Cathedral. I'm like, who? St.
Right.
Sophia Cathedral? Like, what?
Yeah.
Who? There is no St. Sophia. I've actually dug really deep to find out if there actually literally was, but there wasn't. And so somebody knows something. We just been kept in the dark a while.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we go down that crazy rabbit hole of all the stuff that Constantinople did for Christianity and how he shaped
Yeah.
it into what it is today based on fear and control.
Mhm.
You can understand why he made it a saint instead of an actual personification of female
Yeah.
version of God. I don't know, but
Yeah.
so I'm curious because you have talked to a lot of people and you've gained a lot of Sophia, a lot of wisdom
Yeah.
along
Yeah.
the path of your show. Is there an overlying message that keeps repeating itself when you're doing these shows? Is there something that we really need to get out there that maybe we're not doing as good of a job doing?
No, that's so interesting. I don't know if it's like that for you guys, but these messages seem to come almost, I don't know if it's like every year there's like a theme of it, or if it's, I don't know if it's in between these shifts, but there always is some sort of theme where I feel like everyone's bringing like a message. So that is
Mm,
interesting. And I feel like right now the message has been, this is just totally random. So it's always changing, but like I've
yeah.
had a lot of manifestation, like,
Mhm.
people wanting to talk about like raising your
Mm.
vibration and like literally getting off the hamster wheel of following these conditions and these ancestral patterns. And when you do, you're just kind of free to believe that the world is limitless and there's so much possibility. And I think that everything that we're shedding has been keeping us small. And almost like when you think about like the more we let go, like the brighter we get and the more we get closer to like who we truly are. And I feel like that's like the evolution that's happening in each individual's life is going to help the planet. And so I think that that's kind of been the big message that's been this year for 2023 is that we need to move into our highest self so that this is like our responsibility to help the planet. Like if you want to help the planet, you got to do you. You have to.
Yeah.
And that's all you have to do.
I've listened to your show also. I'm subscribed to your show. And a lot of times I've heard you say that when you're having a guest on your show, it's almost like you were researching something and all of a sudden, boop, here's a guest along that topic, that kind of thing. Is that still happening or is that still, is it?
Constant. I mean, it's ridiculous. Okay. I can't even tell you. So crazy. It's so crazy. And I just feel like when your vibration is high like that, like mine's been lately really super high. I feel like you're in that flow. And so you're like synchronicities and the dreams and things are lining up and everything just seems to be fitting together. And then you'll get sick or something and you can tell the difference that nothing's happening right now. And then you rise up again. And so I think that for myself, staying away from all of the negative stuff and just really being in my zone with podcasting has really kept me sane. Truly. Yeah, with all the negativity out there.
It is hard to deal with the negativity, but we did have one guest that really kind of, what she said just kind of hit me. She was talking about how not that it's good to see that. I mean, my interpretation is that it is kind of good to see all this negativity because her take on that was, this is showing you who and where you need to send the love to. And when you see all this negativity, that should be an impetus for you to be kinder in your regular life, be complimentary of people, be more loving. So now I kind of use it that way. I'm like, okay, all this is going on. I need to be a really good person so that hopefully that will kind of spread through. So it can, I mean, there's so many different ways you can kind of take that or, and sometimes you just got to shut it off because it's so overwhelming. But I feel like this is kind of the world we're living in right now. So I'm trying to, in my way, sort of take it a little bit different. I don't know if it makes a difference. We'll see.
Yeah. I'm looking at everything different. I don't want to look at anything the same anymore. We have Thanksgiving and Christmas and all these things. And I'm just like, we're so just in the consumerism of all of it. But you know what? When people start saying, I'm not going to celebrate that anymore, I'm like, but thing is that have you really been celebrating like pilgrims and the natives? Or have you just been getting together with your family? Because I mean, I know that the holidays really are just family for me, and I mean, of course, I definitely educate my kids. I was driving my son to play football last Thanksgiving. That's like their tradition. They go back to high school and they all meet together and play football together. And he goes to Cherokee Trail High School. So on the way there, I'm like, just know that when you're running around that field on Cherokee Trail, he's like,
oh gosh.
That is true.
You have this very kind of wonderful energy about you and this wisdom and this soulfulness. And, you talked again about, Catholic upbringing and all of this. I want to know, what was it like? Because now you're talking about the downloads and the messages that you're getting, and they're very impactful. What was it like the first time that you realized you were getting like a message or a download? I mean, how did that come across and how did you accept it?
I think that the very first time I had an experience was shocking because I wasn't really sure what was happening. I was out in my garage and I think I was smoking, and my best friend had just died. One of my best friends, I knew her since she was 12. And I was so sad. I was super sad. She had just died like the day before. And all of a sudden I hear my name, but I hear my real name. So my real name is Shannon, and I hear Shannon. And I was like, well, I probably just said that to myself. I was like, did I just say that to myself? And then I hear, no, Shannon. And now I'm hearing her voice. And I'm like, am I talking to myself? In my head. This is all happening in my head. And she like told me all of these things, like that she could visit me in my dreams and that she needed to go be with her babies. She had just had twins 11 days before she died.
Oh my
And
goodness.
she also
Oh,
had a child that was Kensley's age at the time, I think like 2 or 3. And she had a 19-year-old too. That happened. And I remember the time was weird. Like I remember there was so much we talked about, but I was only like my cigarette was still going. Like, time was weird. And so I went inside and I remember thinking, did I just have this? So I knew this lady who was a psychic. It was one of the baseball moms or something. She actually still is. And I called her and I told her my experience. And she's like, that's exactly what happens when I receive. And I was like, really? Like, I had no idea. And then I was scared because I was like, am I going to hell?
Right.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Yeah. Because I mean, I was scared. I didn't know if I should be playing with that. I thought, ooh. Not that I didn't ever believe that people could do it. I just didn't know that I could do it. And I wasn't sure if I should be doing that. And then I had people telling me stuff like, oh, it's because you're meditating. And you're opening yourself up to that. And so it took a long time for me to shed the conditions and for me truly to step into being okay with that. And I do see a lot of, I would say that my strongest way that I receive like my clair is not audio, like clairaudience. No. I'm more clairvoyant. I see things a lot more. So
Really?
I would say I see visual and also physical.
So when you see things, like what kind of things do you see? Like ghosts, or do you see future events? Do you see visions? What do you get?
All of it. So yes, I do. My whole house sees stuff. All my girls, especially, we all say things, and we all see them at the same time, which is kind of validating. But every time I do sessions or meditation, they're very, very vivid. Or I've had past life regressions. We're talking like movies, like very clear in color HD. I see very easily. And I think I always have. I've had a great imagination. I just didn't know that imagination actually is divine in itself. That you can actually close your eyes and think about a memory. That's, when you're thinking back at a memory, seeing that's visual. And so I do these one sessions. So my Reiki kind of evolved, but when I'm doing Reiki, I usually want to get my clients down to like a theta brainwave or as close as theta as I can, that in between awake and asleep, in a place where they're only taking in and they're not putting out thoughts and stuff. Like they're only absorbing, because this is where they're able to receive, whatever kind of healing better. And so I will walk them through whatever I see. And so I never, ever have like scripted meditations. So I guess you want to say channel. I don't really call it channeling, but that's how I do all my meditations. I'm seeing their sacred space. And what I noticed was after like hundreds of clients, seeing the same clients hundreds of times, well, not hundreds of times, but several times, I noticed that I was bringing them back to the same space. And it was really only unique to them. So Karen, if I went with you to this park on that chair, next time I saw you, I started realizing that I was always bringing you there, but that I wouldn't do that with Will. I would bring him to another place. And of course, I didn't notice this for like a year or so. It was remarkable. But then I started to do the art so I could show them exactly what I'm seeing. And most of the times it's what they're seeing because we're in the same space.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So the place that you took them to, is that a place that they envisioned themselves, or they knew before, or
sometimes
all the above?
Yeah, sometimes. Like it's kind of interesting though. I mean, like I'll bring someone to a beach and that's like totally, what they were seeing or where they have memories from. When I'm bringing this other person, to a mountain or, to a cabin or wherever, that it usually is unique to them. It's very interesting. I couldn't make this shit up.
Yeah. It's wonderful though. It's wonderful weird.
Yeah.
So like weird. I'm uber jealous, but I'm not gonna.
You guys should get a session one day. I would more than love to bring you into that space.
I think we're going to take you up on
You
it.
should. Yeah, it'd be
Thank
my
you.
gift. I would love to, because I love to do it, because it's
Wow.
just so amazing just to bring you into like this space and just to know that this is your space. Like, I haven't been here before. Like yesterday I had a client. I
Mhm.
mean, everything we did, I've never done before with anybody. And that's how it always is. Isn't that weird?
I might be a little worried about what place you go to with, because
Right out.
He
I'm
has a
working with- Yeah. Some people are more galactic than others. I mean, it's just very interesting.
Speaking of that, what has been the most like fall on your face, shocking,
Far out.
shocking thing that you've learned throughout the course of doing the podcast?
Most shocking thing. I would say that it probably is ancient text. I mean, I know that sounds silly, but it's actually not, because I think the ancient text actually proves that we have root races that are galactic and that,
Mm.
angels are aliens. That's my belief. I think that there's a lot of evidence in this, and I would love to go head to head with anyone who would like to challenge me on it.
There have been discoveries or theories or whatever you want to call it about the potential, the possibility that there have been multiple extinction events for humankind. Like, we are not the first time around this rodeo, right? There's been 3, 4, 5 times that humanity has risen and died
Mhm.
because we um, blew each other away or just evolved out of ourselves into who we are now.
Mhm.
But all those relics and all those fossils and all those things are lost to us.
Yeah.
So there's a school of thought that says that originally, back in millennia ago, we all actually were populated on this planet from aliens. So inevitably, could all consider ourselves to be starseeds.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have had many conversations with people who claim to be starseeds and who are from
Uh-huh.
galactic origins. But in your estimation, are we all aliens?
I do wonder if there was some sort of human or earth breed, I call them breeds, earth lineage. But I think that if there was, they were quickly bred with, so there might not, I don't know for sure on that one. However, I definitely think that when you're talking about like anything that has any kind of like higher intelligence or had the capability to make pyramids and stuff like that, probably wasn't the ones that were here that were the human ones. So they may have been more like cavemen. I don't know. But I do think
Right.
there was an intelligent, group of beings that came here. I mean, it literally is in many books. And, now, if you read some of the Sumerian texts, I mean, they align with the Bible, which actually gives some credit to the Bible itself. So,
Mhm.
some of the stories, I mean, look at, so I think it was Inky's wife's name was Nin 2. I mean, Nin means life, 2 means rib. And
Mm,
she was like the first to give life, here on earth. There's
right.
the stories of the flood. But what I've been studying and following lately has been there's polar shift that's on the rise. And they say
Mhm.
that it could be because of a pole of this planet X or Nibiru planet that's also mentioned in the Sumerian text, which they say that we're on a cycle with this. And so this would be why the deluge or the destruction of the earth was happening, and it happens in a cycle. Mhm.
Mm,
Yeah. And the
lovely.
solar flares are part of that. And really, I
Mm,
follow them every day. I follow suspicious observers. Oh my God, he's great. And no one's looking at this kind of stuff, but yet they know what the moon is every night. And it's like,
mm,
no one's worrying about the sun, which,
right.
yeah, is,
Is what gives us light, right?
yeah.
It's the most important body in our skies.
But it's scarier.
I agree. Karen, I'm with you. Yeah.
Like,
we should pay
oh,
attention. Yeah.
Gosh. Well, I love talking to you, Shanna. You've got an incredible energy, and almost every guest you have on your show said the same thing. And you have this wonderful, soothing energy about you that is just so welcoming. If someone wanted to reach out to you, whether it's for an intuitive session or Reiki healing, or even if it's just to listen to your show, what's the best way for someone to do that?
senseofsoulpodcast.com.
Okay.
It's all there.
We're going to add that link to our show notes. So if you want to just go to skepticmetaphysician.com, go to Shanna's episode page, you will see the link laid in there along with her social media links so you can get connected in every way possible. Shanna, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for being so wonderful. Thank you for being part of the Ethereal Network. And thank you, most importantly, for being our friend.
Thank you. I totally feel like you all are my friends. And thanks so much for having me and for inviting me to be a part of Ethereal Network. My love.
Oh, it's been a pleasure.
And a huge thank you to you. We know that there are tons of options out there, and having you decide to come along on our journey of discovery with us is an absolute honor for us. If you know someone who would benefit from hearing the message we're sharing on the show, do them and us a favor and share the show with them. It will help get the word out about us, and it might just change someone's life for the better. Well, that's all for now, but we'll see you on the next episode of The Skeptic Metaphysician. Until then, take care.